Am I the asshole for dressing nicer than the bride at my cousin's wedding? I got invited to my cousin's very small wedding, which was last week. I had never met her before the wedding, so I knew it was important to make a good impression. I also have deep insecurities about how I look due to being bullied as a child, so I always need to look as nice as possible when I'm going out, even just to get coffee. I started planning what I would wear immediately. The invite said cocktail attire, and I settled on a tea-length dress I had worn to other people's weddings, with matching colored chiffon shawl and flats as well as a real pearl necklace and earrings. I didn't buy anything new for this, just did my best with what I have. I made sure my makeup was decent and didn't clash, and made sure to get my hair cut a week before the wedding so it would look its best as well. Well, I think I was the only one at her wedding that cared how they looked. Most of the 30 guests were in t-shirts, polos and shorts. I was one of 2 guests wearing a dress. The bridesmaid wore something that looked like it was out of Hot Topic. The groom wore a tuxedo shirt and black jeans. The bride wore, holy hell. The bride wore a custom gothic dress that looked like a purple, red, and black patchwork dress. Her hair was not brushed, and she did black makeup so heavily that you could barely see her face. I was shocked. Several people came up to me during the reception to say that I looked nice, but was upstaging the bride, which was not my intention. The bride herself was quiet the whole night. I tried to get to know her as that's what she requested, but she wasn't interested. The wedding ended and on my way home, I got flooded with calls from her mother and new husband that I was a horrible person for dressing like Grace Kelly, and going out of my way to make the bride feel ugly at her own wedding. I didn't. I just can't go somewhere, especially to what I thought was a formal event, looking less than my best. Not the asshole. The invite said cocktail attire. You wore cocktail attire. It seems like the bride and groom have an entirely different version of this concept which was on them to communicate, especially to people who weren't in their close immediate circle. You said you never met this cousin before the wedding, so maybe it's best to go back to this type of relationship now. Seems drama. Not the asshole. Where in the world is cocktail attire only t-shirts and shorts? Did you get a separate invite or what the fuck? How are you the only one who assumed cocktail attire actually meant cocktail attire?
I wanna see the photos. This wedding sounds crazy.
Not the asshole if they didn't issue a dress code. Family or not. I find it really strange that they'd invite someone they've never met to their wedding anyway.
Gonna go out on a limb and say nah. Traditional cocktail attire is supposed to be a little glamorous, couple accessories, clutch bag, lil heel etc., so you didn't screw up there. It just seems they had another idea of what that may have meant. You mentioned how self-conscious you can be, and that's fine, we're all a work in progress. In the same vein, you being shocked by their style is the same judgment you fear from others before going out. Crap like this can happen anytime, lighten up and lean into it a tad more.
Info. If it was a very small wedding, why did they invite you, who they didn't even know? Do you have money? Maybe they invited you in hopes for a nice gift.
Info. Why were you invited to a small, 30-person wedding of someone you've never met before during a pandemic? And why did you go?
Just wondering. If you never even meet your cousin, how come you were invited to her wedding with only 30 guests? Anyway, if you didn't really know your cousin, do you think maybe they changed the dress code and forgot to tell you since you aren't that close? Not the asshole, you followed the dress code on the invite. How were you supposed to know anything different?
Not the asshole, as the dress code was cocktail attire, and you followed that dress code. It's not your fault that neither the other guests or even the bride followed it. Not the asshole. Cocktail attire does not include jeans. If they'd wanted people to dress that way, they should have indicated casual, or even smart casual.
Info. What color was your dress?
Not the asshole. The invite said cocktail attire, and you followed the dress code. The bridal party and other guests did not. If it upsets the bride you followed her instructions, well, that's on her. Not the asshole, but it definitely sounds like there was a dress code you didn't know about. I think even if the dress code was communicated on the invite, if it was that non-traditional and you didn't really know anyone, they should have reiterated it to you. A lot of people don't read the invite that closely, so you shouldn't be blamed. The only Oz here are the people who made a big deal about it. It happened and they need to move on.
I found strange everyone invited, even the bride and groom, were casual but the invite specified otherwise. Is not normal. Are you sure the invite won't said casual? Maybe that is the answer. Or maybe the invite was wrong but nobody contacted you to clarify. It would have more sense. Because if the invite specify casual, and you went formal, you are the asshole. But if the invite was wrong and nobody told you, how is it your fault?
Not the asshole. Did you ask why they indicated cocktail attire on the invitation?
I can understand why you're upset, but why the hell are you going to trash the bride for her style? Not all weddings are traditional in look or theme.
Not the asshole unless the dress was white, which I am assuming not, then you followed the instructions on the invitation. If the bride didn't, that's on her. If they wanted you in casual attire, they should have said.
Not the asshole for what you wore to the wedding. But holy hell, are you an asshole in general? Why are you so judgy about what the bride and groom wore on their wedding day? And what the bridesmaids wore? For someone who has a history of being bullied, I wouldn't have expected you to be throwing so much shade at the happy couple's style choices.
Not the asshole, I guess, unless it was a white dress. At best there was an error on the invite, or a misunderstanding of what cocktail meant. At worst, the attire for the wedding changed between when you got the invite and the actual event, and no one updated you. Maybe BCS it was a small, close wedding, so they told everyone verbally, forgetting that you weren't part of this inner circle. Either way, not your problem. Take a pic of that invite and send it to everyone giving you a hard time. This reminds me of a friend of mine who told everyone her rehearsal dinner was going to be very casual, jeans and sweater. So everyone showed up dressed casually, and then out comes the bride in, prom attire. She just wanted to make sure no one upstaged her.
This happened to me once. It was an ex's coworker's wedding and I knew it would be a traditional Sikh wedding, and so I specifically asked what I should wear. Ex insisted that what I would wear to any wedding is fine, just make sure to bring a scarf. I asked him multiple times. So I wore a strapless mid-thigh length cocktail dress with a jacket and flats and brought the scarf, which was to cover my head. Well, didn't I stick out like a sore thumb amongst all the saris and suits? And then we had to sit on the floor, which is when I really started wishing my dress was longer. I got a lot of angry looks from the other guests, though there were one or two that looked at me with pity. So embarrassing.
Either you showed up to the wrong wedding or this story is fake.
You are the asshole. Not for dressing your best, but for not adjusting it when you realized it was more casual and when you were called out on it. You wore the perfect outfit to dress down and make more casual, take off your pearls and shawl and leave them in your purse car. I bet you would have still looked super cute, but also may have been a bit more comfortable fitting in. Great outfit choice, I bet you looked super cute. Next time take advantage of how easy it is to dress up or down.
Text them back a photo of their own invitation. You followed the dress code on their invitation. I don't see why they are complaining.
I'm not going to make a judgment. Maybe I am really cynical, but I feel like you added the cocktail bit to save face. Why else would no one else be similarly dressed? It just doesn't make sense to me.
I'm skeptical this actually happened. If it did, they're the assholes for getting mad at you for following the dress code, and you're the asshole for the obvious judgment you're passing on their choice of wedding. This last part might just be me because I'm not wealthy, but pearls seem out of place to me at a wedding reception.
Not the asshole, T-length dress is entirely appropriate for cocktail invitation. I cannot believe the rest of the guests thought they were appropriate. Maybe some special code that they knew.
Yeah, none of this happened.
Info, what color was the dress?
Not the asshole. The invite said cocktail attire and you wore it. Not your fault everyone else dressed up like they're going to Walmart. And you didn't even buy anything new.
Info, was the wedding themed at all? The tuxedo shirt and gothic dress make it sound like it was themed.
Info, why were you invited to the very small wedding of somebody who you haven't met before? It sounds like you misjudged the dress code, or that it was changed beforehand but that message didn't reach you, perhaps because you had never met the bridegroom before. It sounds like you were on the fancy side of cocktail attire, and if everybody else has been told to be casual cocktail attire, that's where the misunderstanding and different has possibly come in.
Not the asshole, as long as you didn't wear a white dress, it's fair game. They said cocktail attire. If they didn't know what that meant, it's their problem.
Didn't any of Op's family attend the wedding? What were they wearing? Seems weird bride's mom and new husband would call her after the wedding given the bride had never met her, like, had they ever met her lol. Why didn't Op's parents go to the wedding? Whole thing seems weird. You are the asshole. Nice story.
Info, was the dress code stated in the invitation?
Everyone sucks here. A T-length dress with a pearl necklace is formal attire, so even if they all dressed cocktail you would have been overdressed. But they said cocktail and were all casual, so everyone sucks.
IDK. Why the bride thought anyone looked better than them. I couldn't imagine an alternative person caring that much. TBH, I am a little surprised. I also couldn't imagine focusing on what someone else was wearing at my wedding. I would be too focused on being happy I just married the love of my life. Not the asshole.
Not the asshole. Did no one tell you what the dress code was? Something like that is usually mentioned on the invite. The fact you're the only one who didn't know, maybe there was a communication mishap.
Here, let me fix your post-op. The invite said cocktail attire, Star Trek uniforms, and one settled on a T-length dress, plain Star Trek uniform one had worn to other people's weddings, several Star Trek conventions. The bride and groom stuck Vulcan ears on but seemed to not be wearing anything else Star Trek themed. I got flooded with calls from her mother and new husband that I was a horrible person for dressing like Grace Kelly, a Starfleet officer that looked like they belonged on the bridge of the Enterprise, and going out of my way to make the bride feel ugly like she doesn't know what Star Trek is at her own Star Trek-themed wedding. Oh, and not the asshole.
Why would a person invite someone she's never met to a wedding where she can only have 30 people?
Info, what color was the dress you wore? If it was a pattern, what was the base color behind the pattern? Edit. I realize now a lot of people asked this question and Op seems to be specifically not answering.
Info, why were you trying to impress your cousin? Not the asshole unless they communicated a dress code that you didn't bother with. You dress up to a wedding, it's generally expected.
Not a single person in the entire family discusses what they're wearing to the wedding.
Not the asshole. Everyone else is either an asshole for not dressing for the event or putting a dress code on the invite that wasn't applicable at all. The invitation said cocktail attire. Since when is that? Cargo shorts and t-shirts. Also, her outfit doesn't sound like something that could be upstaged by a T-length dress and some pearls.
Not the asshole. I would have thought you were showing respect by dressing nicely. Imagine if you'd turned up to a wedding in jeans when everyone else was in cocktail attire?
You're not the asshole for how you dressed. You had no way of knowing any different and, based on the dress code you were given, it sounds like you did the best with the info you had. However, your comments about the bride and groom's dress come across as somewhat judgmental, in particular the "holy hell" comment and the way you italicized "gothic." That is an asshole attitude. I'm going with nah, with the caveat that if Op was being judgmental, she needs to examine that attitude.
Nah, you dressed as the invite told you. However, what really pushed as Tono assholes here instead of not the asshole is the demeaning way you talk about your cousin and the wedding party. Yeah, it's not a traditional wedding, but you come off as rude the way you talk about it. Also, how did you even get invited? If it's a small wedding and they have never met you, why were you there? Also, why attend if you hadn't met them before and obviously do not understand their social circle?
Go to some etiquette websites, copy and paste the definition of cocktail attire, and send out to anyone who texted you. I assume you are asking me to apologize for following the bride's wishes. I attempted to be respectful and dress as requested. Here is the definition of cocktail attire. If the invitation had stated casual, I would have done so. Please stop attacking me for doing as told. Also, you don't say, but I assume your dress was not white nor off-white, correct?